Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, and today's episode where we basically recap the videos and the reviews from the previous month. I've got to be honest, we had a bit of a gap because of Gamescom, so there's a couple of games in this list that we will mention, but they're certainly not the best of the month. They're just games that we reviewed, and then we'll go over the ones that actually scored very well, which is the top 6.
Yeah, as well as Gamescom, it was also the summer holidays, so obviously kids were off school and what have you, so August is always a quiet month in terms of reviews, but as Mark mentioned, there are 8 reviews here, 6 decent scores. So which game got the highest score for the month of August? Well, let's find out. So the first of those 2 that didn't score particularly well and aren't technically on the list, we have Mars 2120. This is a Metroidvania set obviously on Mars, and it's nothing inherently wrong with it. I mean, it's okay, but it is incredibly mediocre. A lot of the things it does are done better elsewhere. There is an absolute plethora of Metroidvanias on the Switch these days, and this is just certainly not up there with the best of them. It's one of those games that if you do like Metroidvanias and you find it on a deep sale, and I would recommend a deep sale, you might get some fun out of it, but not the greatest of games. It got 57%.
Then we got a more recent release that was announced in one of those directs from the Double Direct the other day, and it's Goat Simulator 3. Now this game's very good on other platforms. It performs really well on the Xbox, and that's where I predominantly played it before. Yeah, it's not great on Switch. The performance is shocking, honestly. It has moments where the entire world loads around you after about 10 seconds, and even up to like 20 seconds later, NPCs will be spawning in. It's a shame because you need some of those for some of the missions, and it just detracts from the fun. Now on the flip side of that, it can run at 30 FPS in single player and also in split screen, so if you're just looking at that side of things, it's not terrible. But yeah, the core gameplay is basically just ludicrous. Go around, cause as much carnage as you can, and then there are different objectives that will pop up on your screen, and you're trying to eventually unlock the large door that's inside your house, which also happens to be in a Ubisoft style tower in the middle of nowhere. Yes, as you can tell, it's completely ridiculous, but still quite fun. That one got a SwitchUp score of 60%. In 6th place then we have Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and a game that I hadn't played back in the day and was quite keen to when I saw that Aspyr was bringing it across. It was alright. It's very dated in terms of a lot of its mechanics. Obviously in an era where we have The Mandalorian on Disney and everyone liking that side of things, they thought it might be a nice idea to bring it back. They've done a little bit of work in terms of the visual. It looks a lot cleaner, it's running at HD resolutions now, but it is that core gameplay unfortunately that does hold it back. It just doesn't live up to modern standards in most ways. The shooting mechanics feel a little clunky. Some of the level designs a little confusing, but then it kind of redeemed itself with the gadgets that it uses, and I'd say a lot of modern action and adventure games don't do this. It really did make use of the Mandalorian's different systems, so you had like different ways of viewing the world to see where to go next. You could use a little welding machine to get through grates, and then obviously the iconic jetpack, that was used really nicely. So yeah, on balance it was okay, but not as good as I thought it would be. It got a SwitchUp score of 68%. Anyway, One Piece Odyssey is a JRPG. I thought it was going to be one of those action, almost Musu titles that we've seen, you know, the arena action games, but it was a full-on RPG, a bit more like Dragon Quest actually. Really an enjoyable game, and if you're not familiar with the characters, you can still pick it up and it teaches you about their lives. It's got turn-based combat, it's got a lot of nice nuanced systems, and you will have to take control of different characters for side missions and other objectives, and then those characters' skills are used for traversal, which is always something I like to see. It just makes it a bit more interesting when you're moving around. Now early on it feels a little like Ys 8 where you're on an island, but then later it takes a slight U-turn almost, where it tries to make you relive past events, which is something that can be done well, but very often is a bit of a pitfall when it comes to storytelling, and I did feel like that was the case here. However, if you push through it, it does manage to do enough to warrant the time. And as far as JRPGs go, it just feels really polished and was an enjoyable play. Overall, that one got a score of 79%. In joint 4th place with that, we have Gundam Breaker 4. I was keen to play this one after really enjoying Megaton Musashi Wired, which was a JRPG mech game that kind of flew under the radar of a lot of people. This one's sequel to Gundam Breaker 3, which I believe was on the PS Vita or PSP, and there was another Gundam game in the middle that the fans didn't really enjoy so much, so this one takes things back to basics. There's a story here that's not exactly the most interesting in the world, that you're a beta tester of this online game, and you find yourself playing against other teams, piloting these virtual mecha known as Gunpla. And obviously the Gundam universe really centers around the customization of those Gunpla, so that's a huge part of the gameplay. You can spend hours just tweaking, changing the visuals. It did a few things in that regard as well that I liked. So unlike Megaton Musashi, you don't have to earn the different colors for customization. You could customize from the get-go in any way you want. And then another cool aspect was you could take your designs and upload them for others to try online. And there is actually a SwitchUp design, the SwitchUp MK1, if you want to go try that for your first build. It does look pretty sweet and it has our colors. But the gameplay was fun, if a little repetitive, and kind of goes without saying in these styles of games, honestly. But there's a lot more depth here as you progress through the levels. So a good game, better if you're playing online, and it scored a joint 4th place score of 79%.
Okay, in 3rd place then we had Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. This was Nintendo's attempt to bring what used to be an actual event that people would participate in front of crowds of people into a digital game, and for the most part it does a decent job of revisiting that time. For anyone that has any sort of nostalgia, what was that film? Was it The Wizard that had the World Championships in with Super Mario Bros. 3? Yeah, it certainly brings back nostalgia if you lived through that era. So here you have a number of different NES games with a set number of challenges attributed to them, and you can unlock more as you go along. And the premise is definitely very addictive, and it has an online mode which works very well as well. It would be nice to see more games included. I don't know if that's something Nintendo have up their sleeve in terms of DLC, hopefully free DLC if that is the case. What's here is definitely a good time if you do enjoy these games or want to see a different spin on them, but it is quite expensive for what you're getting, and there should have been more games included from the off, to be perfectly honest. On the whole though, it got a SwitchUp score of 80%.
Alright, that takes us on to 1st place actually. It's a joint first this time round. And the game I reviewed was the survival horror Conscript, which was a World War I survival horror game that put you in control of a French soldier. Now, initially I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously we're used to the Resident Evils of the world, and this setting was very alien to me, but it does work excellently. You don't have the same variety of enemy types that you'd find in a Resi game, but the atmosphere is absolutely terrifying, for want of a better word. There are small signposts around and references to things like Allée de Suicides, which I should imagine is basically the trenches where you were most likely to perish. A mustard grenade will fall in and you'll be trying to evade that whilst avoiding different German troops, and you'll run out of ammo and just have to batter them with a melee weapon. It's really grim. Sometimes you'll come across other soldiers, whether friend or foe, that are wounded in a trench, and you have that decision to make whether you take them out for their own good, give them that mercy kill, or pass on by with the sound of their screams gradually fading in the distance. It's quite weird to say that this was, the joint first game for the month and is a very enjoyable experience despite the horrific nature of the material, but that's the case. A very small indie team, well worth checking out. Conscript got a SwitchUp score of 85%.
And the other game then that got the top score for the month, we had Valfaris Mechatherion. This is a sequel to Valfaris, which is also on the Switch, but whereas that was a run and gun, this one is actually a horizontal shoot 'em up. It's very similar in terms of its style, certainly in terms of its aesthetic. It has that metal infused feeling that runs throughout, and the soundtrack to boot, and it's definitely a very good game. It's quite brave of the dev team to go in such a different direction. After the first game, as far as I'm aware, did very well, certainly scored well, but they have pulled it off, to be fair. And if you did enjoy the original and do enjoy shoot 'em ups, there is that caveat of course, then you can definitely have a lot of fun here. There were some difficulty spikes at times, and I did feel that the aesthetic didn't merge quite as well with this 2.5D style as it did with the traditional 2D of the original game, but still a lot of fun, and as with the previous game, it got a SwitchUp score, highest for the month, of 85%. So there you have it, there's the scores for August. As we said, not as many reviews as usual, owing to it being a bit of a strange month, but I think this is a month that we'll look back on as quite a curiosity when we do the year roundup at the end of December, as these aren't the sort of games that you'd expect necessarily to see being the top games for the month. Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit to pick any of these games up, you can use our website switchup.gg to get your eShop cards, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cashback. There are other links down there to other places as well, such as PlayAsia. Use the links and codes and you'll get yourself a bit of money off there. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.